Hi guys, my name is Kim and I will be discussing the history of our chosen organisation for our presentation, EDVOS. EDVOS is an acronym for Eastern Domestic Violence Outreach Service. They are a proudly feminist, non-for-profit organisation located in the Eastern Metropolitan Region of Melbourne. EDVOS was established in 1994 after the merging of domestic violence services provided by Outer East Domestic Violence Service and Inner West Women's Service. EDVOS's services are now delivered across the cities of Boroondara, Manningham, Whitehorse, Monash, Maroondah, Knox and Yarra Ranges. There are between 600 to 700 reports filed each month for domestic violence cases at EDVOS alone. EDVOS allocates women and children according to risk, low or high, and every person with a file receives support from the organisation, which could be in the form of a court support or case or intake worker, which could be ongoing support or immediate, for example, home visits or emergency home accommodation. According to Hughes and Wearing, EDVOS would be considered an upstream thinking organisation. As mentioned earlier, EDVOS was founded in 1994 by a number of activists who came together to create the organisation. Prior to the establishment, it consisted of volunteer groups. When small pockets of funding became available, all of the small volunteer groups collaborated and became EDVOS. Since then, they have been run by an elected board. In 2000, EDVOS recognised the limited supports available for children and introduced children's support workers, followed in 2001 by the Court Support Program, which initiated the innovative development of women remaining safely in their home. In 2003, EDVOS became an informal partnership with an animal shelter that resulted in their Pets in Peril program with Animal Aid, which was then launched in 2006. Further, in 2006, EDVOS established the Regional Family Violence Partnership. This partnership has made significant achievements over the years, including the Eastern Media Advocacy Project, the Family Violence Integration Project, and a children's working group that began with the Mapping Project, developed a framework, and most recently with the Australian Childhood Foundation created the Safe and Secure program, which is a trauma-informed practice guide for understanding and responding to children and young people affected by family violence. In 2007, EDVOS's governance structure changed from a committee of management to a governing board, and staffing levels continued to grow as the government's reform of the family violence service system was implemented. The outreach was removed from the name to reflect the increasing range of services that were available to EDVOS. However, the O was retained in the acronym. With systematic reform funding in 2009, EDVOS, partnering with the then Maroondah Halfway House, began providing 24/7 face-to-face crisis response. In 2014, EDVOS partnered with the Victoria Police Family Violence Units to provide home visits to women and children who are at risk and had previously not engaged with services. In the same year, EDVOS received and responded to over 3,760 referrals from Victoria Police, provided 980 outreach supports to women and children, saw approximately 270 women in the court program, visited more than 70 women and families in the new Vic Police and EDVOS partnership, and provided 130 face-to-face after-hours supports. I will now discuss the funding in regards to EDVOS, as they are a non-for-profit. The main funding body is the Department of Human Services. There are also a number of corporate donors, and they are able to fund specific projects or make donations, for example, community donations, items, property, money, and so on. Sometimes court funds can come through to EDVOS as well. Funding is often given with a very strict criteria. EDVOS is unable to allocate funding to what they feel it needs to be allocated to. For example, money can be given to a woman to help her rent a house, but it is very hard to come by money for a woman that has already had an existing mortgage and can no longer pay for that. Further, since the organisation has grown so much, there are now more obligations to meet targets and to meet the criteria for government funding. Ultimately, the history of EDVOS has had an important influence on social workers in the field. Many of the staff have been there for the long haul and have brought the original history with them. There appears to be a very embedded culture at EDVOS. I will now pass you on to Mariah, who will discuss the culture, mission and objectives. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mariah and I will be discussing the mission and objectives for EDVOS. EDVOS's mission revolves around the statement that it is the fundamental human right for women and children to live free from violence. EDVOS's mission comes from the fact that they operate from a feminist perspective. Additionally, EDVOS has key guiding principles including client-centered service, safety of women and children, safety of workers, perpetrators' responsibility for violence. The service is to be accessible and relevant. There has to be a high-quality professional service provided by trained staff. Women's rights are to be respected. The needs of children needs to be acknowledged. Supervision, training and education, and evaluation. I will explain in detail a few of these that were discussed in our interview. So the perpetrator's responsibility for violence explained. EDVOS emphasises the principle that responsibility for the violent and abusive behaviour lies within the perpetrator, not the victims, predominantly women and children. EDVOS is also committed to developing responses that enable women and their dependent children to remain in their own homes safely following violent incidents. Service is to be accessible and relevant, explained. EDVOS is committed to providing services that are accessible and meet the needs of the diverse population of the Eastern Metropolitan Region of Melbourne. The programs are available for women and children from all cultural backgrounds, ages, classes, religions, sexual preferences and abilities for responding to violence and abuse. Women's rights are to be respected, explained. EDVOS recognises women's rights as clients, service users, to be treated with dignity and respect in an environment that provides for privacy, informed consent and confidentiality, and the right to complain without fear or discrimination. Women have the right to view any information about them held by Eastern Domestic Violence Service as well. Needs of children explained. Children can be direct or indirect victims of domestic violence. They can be directly abused in their mother's arms or womb. They can be injured when trying to protect their mother. They can also be used to coerce their mother. They may observe the violence or become aware of it by hearing it or seeing the effects. They live with the effects of violence on the health and caring capacity of the mother. Where children are perceived to be at risk of sexual and or abuse and or neglect, a duty of care position for the children is to be taken and the children's safety and needs are to be considered paramount. EDVOS will notify child protection when necessary with the knowledge and consent of the mother where this is not likely to put the children at further risk. EDVOS ensures that the missions and objectives remain alive through strictly believing that any work done isn't considered complete unless they go through 5 advocacies. The 5 advocacies include safety, justice and law, housing, financial and children's needs. It is only considered as constructive work if all 5 are met. If only 1 is met, it is not considered holistic. EDVOS ensures that the mission and objectives remain alive through accountability and transparency, where the work has to be able to be evaluated to standards where the women and their children are benefited completely. For accountability, EDVOS ensures that they direct the accountability to the male perpetrator, where it is never the female's fault. Moreover, the work at EDVOS must be equitable and politically appropriate, which involves the feminist values. Moreover, EDVOS has to abide by the DVRC code. DVRCV stands for Domestic Violence Resource Centre Victoria and is a statewide service in Melbourne. DVRCV provides training, publications, research and other resources to those experienced or those who have experienced domestic violence and practitioners and service organisations such as EDVOS who work with domestic violence survivors. So this is just a little bit about the services EDVOS has and how it relates to the mission and objectives. The first step towards receiving support and services provided by EDVOS involves a self-referral via phone, after our referral, police referral or a referral from other services. The next step is going through the EDVOS intake team where the risk is identified and then safety secured. Additionally, ongoing needs are identified and EDVOS advocacy team for case management comes into play. Safety, children's needs, the law, and immediate well-being. Making sure people are getting to court and getting orders. The third step is the needs of women and their children being identified by the caseworkers who will provide support and a case plan. This may include financial help, housing help, legal, health and well-being, or safety assistance. And furthermore, there is safety at home where possible. Women and their children are supported to remain in their own homes, often with security upgrades. This disrupts the culture of female victims always having to leave to become homeless or fall through the cracks of refuge systems. So here are just a list of programs and services that are provided by EDVOS. They include the Justice Program, Court Applicant Program, Legal Advocate, Police Fax Back, children's program, housing, pets in parole, community development, secondary consultation and counselling and support. I will just explain a couple of these, which we also talked about in the interview. So the Justice Program explained, safety and protection run throughout EDVOS's advocacy work with women responding to family violence. Safety planning with women is done in the context of responding to the tactics and behaviour of the person using violence and control. Because perpetrators of domestic violence have a particular sense of entitlement to use violence and control, it is essential that the response to the violence is not left with the woman alone, but that the services and systems are joining with the woman to deter further harm and reoffending. Pets in parole explained. For women reluctant to leave an abusive partner because their pets are at risk, EDVOS has a protocol with a local animal shelter to accommodate pets at minimal charge for these women. We asked in the interview how they would describe the culture, and they responded with, although the culture is very intense and there is a lot of pride within the people working at EDVOS, the women working at EDVOS do not consider themselves as social workers or caseworkers, instead they consider themselves as advocates. We were told that it was busy but very fun. And expanding on how busy it is, we were told that every caseworker has somewhere between 14 to 18 clients at a time, and when looking at a client they need to vary. There's a big variance in needs and risks, such as low risk cases or high risk cases. Moreover, EDVOS appreciates the woman as an expert in her own life, and that develops a lot of trust with their clients. They do not tell them what to do, instead they ask them what they want to do and try to guide them with the utmost respect. We asked Gabrielle, the lady we interviewed, about being an advocate, and she informed us that it's a very varied position. It can be specific, for example, helping with childcare benefits and legal advice, but it can also be systemic, meaning that it is all based on the amount of goals that need to be met, whilst considering what the client wants alongside the basic needs of them and their children. Now I will pass on to Leah, who will be discussing the governance of EDVOS.
Alright, hi guys, my name's Leah, and today I'm going to be starting off talking about the governance of EDVOS. So the constitution for EDVOS and its principles all build off accountability and transparency frameworks. There has been a slight change in these since the new CEO took over, but everything has mostly stayed the same. Since EDVOS are a not-for-profit organisation, there are acts of parliament legislation that affect the way that they practice. And the first one of these, which positively affects them, is the Act Outside of Freedom Act, which enables them to keep their clients' information as private as possible from the perpetrators and the perpetrators' legal teams. They operate under confidentiality, but occasionally this has to be broken in a dangerous situation, for example, a risk to a woman's life. The Evidence Act has also impacted EDVOS in the past, as lawyers have been able to access perps files to find inconsistencies and try and get them off their charges. However, very recently a judge ruled in favour of EDVOS and agreed to protect these files to a higher degree. At EDVOS there is a CEO, and the CEO is a male. I find this interesting as it is a primarily feminist organisation, and would have found it great to meet him and speak to him about his personal values and views. They try to keep the managerial structure at EDVOS as flat as possible to promote an equitable and democratic environment. However, there is a board of management that do direct the CEO and program managers that run the 4 areas, which are operations, advocacy, community, and another one that I haven't written down, sorry guys. There are also 2 team leaders, one that is in charge of intake and the other that is in charge of case management. The case manager was Gabrielle, who just happened to be the lady that we interviewed. She also stated that since the rapid growth of the organisation, they have needed more of a triangle structure in regard to managerial positions, and more positions in higher power will be created in the near future. EDVOS has strong values and ethics centred around client and worker safety, as well as perpetrators' responsibility for violence. We asked Gabrielle if there were any other values and ethics specific to EDVOS, and she stated that it was important to note that they operate to work alongside women. It is important that women feel that they are a voluntary service and not an obligatory one. She believes their values and ethics are creative, fundamentally just, out of the box, and are ready to meet any needs for women and their children. She spoke about an example of when they had to rehome a woman, her 3 dogs, and her 22 alpacas, and sure enough, they found a way. And I will now pass you on to Catherine, that will speak further about the governance of this organisation.
Hi, I'm Catherine. As a continuation from Leah, I will further discuss the topic of governance. At EDVOS, I have values, ethics, and governance that affect the way in which the workers can practice. At EDVOS, their set values and ethics enable all the workers, including the social workers, to be creative in the way they work, and enables them to not be prescriptive in ways they engage in clients and to manage their work and clients. Within the organisation, they have a structure of who deals with what situation and a structure of teams who work under the idea of women's needs change rapidly. Therefore, the staff need to be able to deal with any specific to the client. Generally, their whole team is trained and recruited based upon their ability to help all women without any specifics. Every worker at EDVOS is titled as a domestic violence advocate, but they can train in one of 5 different areas within the organisation. The services EDVOS provides to their clients are funded through a few ways. They have a number of corporate donors and they can fund specific projects or make donations. Community donations are also used and they can provide donations such as items, property, money, etc. EDVOS receives a lot of their funding from the Department of Human Services, used towards the services they provide and their programs. Sometimes they may receive court funds on the odd occasion to help out with their organisation. Although they receive funds from a select few organisations, some of the programs they provide to users of the organisation aren't yet able to be funded. The government has said to EDVOS they want to see the organisation work for a few years before they will provide them with funding. EDVOS has collaboration with the Ringwood Magistrates Court, Eastern Community Legal Aid and Victorian Legal Aid, who all work together in order to help the clients at EDVOS. The collaborations are governed by MOUS, which is a Memorandum of Understanding. VicPol is one of the biggest collaborations for the organisation, who send all the reports to EDVOS, and impact on the workers' day-to-day life. EDVOS has collaborations also with the local healing services to help women with religious beliefs to gain healing from harm they have been through before reaching the organisation. Lastly, they have a connection with the Indigenous Women Services. EDVOS is currently working towards creating a collaboration with a housing organisation to help the women within the organisation who need housing options. EDVOS has 4 main partners to their organisation. The Regional Family Violence Organisation is in partnership with EDVOS, which is also chaired by them and VicPol, through the MOUS process. EDVOS has also a partnership with Family Services and the DHS through Child Protection. A typical day in EDVOS office is they collaborate with the police and respond to calls to do with domestic violence. They deal with approximately 600 to 700 calls a month from women needing to use the services of EDVOS. The workers allocate the women depending on the level of risk and allocate caseworkers to specific cases. The social workers at EDVOS work alongside people in a court and do home visits to check upon the women who have reached out to the organisation. The social workers at EDVOS operate purely under feminism and their values, which helps them to provide an accurate and effective service for their clients.
In conclusion to our presentation, we hope you have learnt some interesting things today about EDVOS and domestic violence organisations and how they work. Moreover, we hope that the aspects of missions and objectives gave an insight into what it might be like to work for an organisation such as EDVOS and how specific missions and objectives affect different organisations. As future social work students, it's important to understand missions and objectives and how an organisation's mission and objectives may affect our values and beliefs as workers. Regarding governance, EDVOS works mainly off accountability and transparency frameworks. Parliament legislation affects the way that they practice. This is mainly through Privacy and Confidentiality Acts. They try to keep the managerial structure as flat as possible to encourage democracy within the organisation, but there is a new growth to the managerial sector as the company has grown significantly. EDVOS works strictly to their values and ethics. They have a generalised structure which enables all the workers at the organisation to help all the people who come to use the service. Every worker at this organisation is known as a domestic violence advocate and work together to achieve better outcomes for the users at this organisation. Their programs are funded through numerous donations from other organisations, but aren't yet funded from the government. Through their collaborations, EDVOS is able to work together with these outsiders to the organisation to help provide the best service to their clients. Overall, the social workers at EDVOS collaborate with others, such as the police, and respond to the calls coming in to the organisation. The social workers at EDVOS operate purely under feminism and their values to ensure accurate and effective service for their clients. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed.